And welcome to the Good Performance Podcast. Otto Zaccardo, joined by Troy Shallow, Brandon Jetter, and a special guest who we mentioned last podcast, Elliot Markuson. Yeah.
Bogard.
Elliot Bogard. Let's get right into it. We cover exciting stories and sports things, and yeah, I ran out of steam on that one. I was too excited to be on the podcast with you guys. So yeah, here we are. We're back. Last podcast, we talked about how any music we want to play.
Bro's doom scrolling.
No, I'm trying to post a story of Elliot's post on the Good Performance story and be like, today on the podcast we have blah blah blah. Any questions for him? But the song that was in his post just started playing.
Yeah.
Set it off,
Last podcast, we were talking about football and East and West and how high school football is developing and changing now. We rambled on about it for quite some time, and it came up that I wonder what it's like in the South. Like, I wonder what football country's like these days, and who better to speak on football culture in the South than our very own Elliot.
Come on.
Yeah. There we go. So, Elliot, you want to give a little intro? Elliot, vetted GPC guy, loves it. He could fit in the gym. I don't know if he could hang, We'll see.
Yeah.
He has a reputation. He has a reputation for being kind of soft.
I actually wanted to come work out one time when I was in Boston, but I was shot down. I said I was too intense for Good Performance. I don't know what that means, but so, I had to make do, and I had to work out. I did some burpees in the alleyway because they wouldn't have me. So that's what I'm about.
Yeah. Well, we don't do burpees, so there's where you're wrong. That's probably why you got shut down. Yeah, just let it rip. It starts out formal, and then any script we try to make completely falls apart. So just get it going. Elliot's a beast, by the way, guys. Elliot played at Ole Miss football and bobsled. What is it, 5 years? 5 years bobsledding?
Yeah.
Were you at Ole Miss for 4 years or 5 years?
5 years.
Okay, so we got 10-year high-level athlete over here. Something's getting really loud. What is it? Troy?
I think it's Brandon. Is it? You got your computer on a pillow?
It sounds like someone's got an extra fan blowing to cool down their computer from overheating. But Elliot, just go in. I don't know. Football guy, welcome.
Hey man,
this is already.
It's good to be here. It's good, and it's good to finally see Troy's face. It's been a long time.
Same for you.
I have a pretty face, man. I've heard a lot about Troy, just from the Otto lore. So yeah, always a pleasure. Brandon, Otto, my esteemed colleagues, teammates, brethren in arms. Yeah, dude, we've been in the trenches together a little bit. My story, I grew up in Mississippi. My dad was a SEC college football coach. So you could say that I grew up quite literally in a football field, on it in the Coliseum, I guess. I mean, some of my earliest memories were, 7, 8, 6 years old, and I'm standing on the sidelines of Arkansas Razorback football game with 75,000 screaming fans, right? So that, to me, college football wasn't a choice. It was like, it was just like you wake up and you piss and you drink some water and drink some coffee, right? There was no, oh, what am I going to do? That was what I was going to do. So I went to Ole Miss, got recruited to a few schools, decided on Ole Miss. My first choice was Arkansas. The coach that recruited me to Arkansas went to Auburn. Didn't have any ties to Auburn, so I said, I'm going to go be a Reb. It was amazing. I was a walk-on, earned my playing time, earned my starting position, myself and 5 of my other good friends. We were kind of the core guys. They called us the other guys. Or colloquially, our special teams coach from New Jersey called us the Joes because we were lunch pail guys. And backing up a little bit, too, back in high school, I went to a small county 4A school, won 2 state championships, only lost 3 games my whole career. Never lost a home game. That's kind of my claim to fame in high school. And, yeah, so football was very much part of my DNA at an early age. Graduated from Ole Miss, moved to China, where I wanted to challenge myself and do something outside of college football or football in general, and ended up, ironically enough, coaching American football in China. and then came back to the States and kind of got roped into doing bobsled, and it's been downhill since. And then my newest career path, I guess you could say, is I just signed a contract in NASCAR. So I'm on my second iteration of professional athletics, the Adult Tri-Sport Athlete Award. And that's where I'm at.
Sick. So you moved to China.
In China?
So you moved to China to do something separate from football and ended up coaching football in China. Nice.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
Can you
escape it.
please
I got over
tell
there.
me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you please tell me about football in China? How does that even?
Yeah.
I didn't know they were allowed to do that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I went over there. Well, it all started because I had a job. Athletic director at Ole Miss offered me a job to come work in the administration. And I was either going to do that or be a college football coach. And I thought, I want to travel. I want to kind of push myself a little differently. I want to get out of Oxford. And so I was like, you know what? The easiest way to do that is to go teach English overseas. Ironically, I'm from Mississippi, right? So I barely speak English, and they want me to be a teacher. So I get there and get in touch with different foreigner communities. And there was a guy that had been living in China for like 10 plus years. He played football at Michigan, and he had started this American Football League in China. And he was like, hey, man, I don't know if you'd be interested in coaching. And so that's kind of how the ball got rolling with that. Yeah, I ended up coaching at International High School, their football team, full pads. They weren't any good, right? And then I ended up doing a camp and a clinic with the NFL in Shanghai in the spring of 2019. So that was pretty cool. We coached players and coaches from all over the country came to Shanghai. And Deshaun Watson came, which was even weirder, I think. The part about going to China wasn't the weird part. The fact that Deshaun Watson was there pre-stuff was weird. That's weird.
Pre-scandal.
Yeah, pre-scandal. And I mean, he asked me some questions while we were there that I don't know.
I mean, he went there because the Chinese love.
He was like,
they love massages. They love massages.
Yeah,
That's
dude,
why he
way
went
up
there.
He actually we were at a practice the last day of practice, and it's like myself, they flew my dad out, they flew some other old head like coaches from the US out. I'm like the only young guy coaching, and Deshaun, everyone's kind of like, talking to Deshaun, all they're taking photos, the news is there. And then he like walks over and he goes, hey man, you played Ole Miss? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, oh, so you played with Chad Kelly? And I was like, yeah, I did. And he goes, man, that's sick. Hey man, did you go to the clubs here at all? Because I was at the club all night last night. And then so fast forward a year, how many years later his scandal happened? I was like, dude, I met this guy in Shanghai, and like I had a weird vibe about him from the jump.
That's funny.
Clubs in Shanghai. What could go wrong?
Should have been like, I don't go to clubs, but I know a great massage parlor.
Yeah.
He goes, is all the liquor here fake? Because I drank a lot of liquor last night. I got really sick.
Well, it's all, isn't it rice fermented stuff? Or is
Sugar.
that
Dude,
wrong?
I don't
Sugar
know,
brown.
man. It's just free.
You're
It's
the
just
one that
free.
lived there.
Well, they'll give
We're
you a
part of
little.
expert.
How different is American Chinese food from China Chinese food?
Oh, it's not even the same.
Which
Like,
one's
that shit-
better?
The real stuff's better. The real stuff's better. It's not as like here. It's like they put everything in like some kind of like sugary sauce. They don't do that over
Pretty
there.
good.
Yeah, you just get
Coach,
your
you
you get your cut up organs. You get it just straight with garlic. That's all you get. You don't get any like orange chicken sauce on your cut up intestines.
Ugh, I kind of like the sauce though.
Yeah, I
Duck sauce
just
with
had some Chinese food
yeah.
before we got on here, and it was pretty good.
Dude, hot take, good performance, big sauce guys.
You
I
know
don't
what? Typically,
really
I'm
know
not
what
a
that
big
means.
sauce guy. I'm typically not a big sauce guy. Like
Otto's a one sauce guy.
I'm
and
a
that's
single
ketchup.
sauce guy. It's usually like ketchup, barbecue sauce, like a single sauce per dish will get me by. But I'm not a.
I think
don't
barbecue
need to
sauce
have
is
it.
better than all other condiments, but that's maybe a conversation for another day.
Yeah, you guys and Tim Monroe got a lot in common.
We should get Tim on the.
Dude, he'd do it. But yeah, my time in China was fun. Got to do some crazy stuff. I mean, yeah, we did a lot of crazy things.
What kind
But it
of
was
crazy
fun.
stuff did you get to do? Did you maybe go to a club with Deshaun Watson?
No, I didn't go with Deshaun Watson. I did see.
We went to Thailand to go.
We went to Thailand. We did. Me and my buddies. Well, my roommate in China was this kid from South Africa. He's my age, guy from South Africa. Every morning he would wake up and he would smoke a pack of cigs and drink a pot of coffee, and that he called it the South African breakfast. And then we all bought motorcycles, so we started like our little foreigner motorcycle gang, and we would just like drive around the city, and yeah, we just had a lot of fun. Maybe had a run in with the Chinese cops one time. I got our stuff impounded, but we got it back.
Do they have gyms in China?
They do. They do, and they have some great ones. I was a member of this gym, and I would go in the evenings to work out, and it was on like it was like on the 25th floor of the skyscraper, but they had all the windows open somehow, and they had like a full turf, like 50-yard like strip of turf you could push the prowler on, and they had an MMA like ring inside of there, and of course there's nobody in there like Olympic lifting or anything like that, and I would go in there and work out, and it was just people would just stop and take photos and videotape you while I was just doing like hang cleans with 135. So they have all the equipment, but nobody uses it except the foreigners that know how to use it.
That's funny. Sick. So I guess we'll lead into a few things that I'm kind of curious about that you and we've talked a lot, but we haven't really touched on. This is more so like, I guess the transition, you said you kind of woke up and were raised all through football. So it was kind of just a way of life, which is, I think, a little bit different than, actually, it's the complete opposite of how Troy and I kind of grew up. It was like we were the weirdos for really being into football. It was like a very strange thing. But I guess what I'm curious is how that dynamic from high school to college goes. I don't know what kind of, like, if you went to a big high school, I think you said it was small, but like what the culture is around it, and kind of what I think what a lot of people are curious, at least where we're from, and maybe Brandon too, is there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to college recruiting and playing at, whether it be the next level from high school to college or even past that. There's a lot of, I would say, misinformation, because it's always presented to outsiders that don't come from that background that, you know, that's something that only these select few can do. Like, it's this protected area, and it's like it's such an anomaly to even have an opportunity to play high level sports in college, at least kind of where we're from. So I'd be curious on what that was like in Mississippi, and kind of how that differed from where it was for you. I don't know. I'm probably fumbling on my words a little bit.
No, no, I get what
Just
you're saying. I get what you're saying.
like it's so far removed. It's like you see it on TV and that's it. Or if you're in college, you see these guys and then I can't play in the UFL or overseas. Like, that's it. I'm not one of these guys. But I wondered if it was any different down south because you were next to those guys, or maybe you have a different perspective on it because you're a kid, like seeing these guys right on the sideline. Like, oh yeah, I know him. Like, I went to practice with him. Like, seeing it, how did that influence kind of your perspective on playing at a high level?
Yeah, I think at first being a kid and being around it, just like anybody else's like fathers or parents that worked a profession and you're just around them all the time. For me, it was college football. So, I would hang out with my dad when he's in his position meeting with his guys, and I would just be drawing like cartoons on his whiteboard in the back of the room, and he's going over gap scheme because he's offensive line coach. Right. And so it's like that kind of environment. And then sitting in team meetings with the head coach that he worked for, who was a really inspiring guy, and just like absorbing it as a kid that I didn't know I was absorbing it until I got older. And I was like, holy shit, man, like I'm kind of indoctrinated a little bit. And I think going back to your other question about in the South, it's not like you're weird if you don't play football. If you're a dude and you don't play football, man, like you better be good at basketball, you better be good at baseball. And that's it. Like football is a religion in the South. High school football is huge in the South. You know, Oxford's not a big town. I think the population of Oxford might be 20,000. And I went to a small high school. There's two high schools in Oxford. I went to the county school, so I graduated with 105 kids. And we were nationally ranked my junior year out of all the divisions in the U.S. And you play a high school game on Friday night, Saturday morning or whatever, you're in town, or the next week you're in town, you go to the gas station, it's such a big deal that the owner of the gas station will pull you aside and be like, "Hey, man, you played like shit," right? Or but your name's in the newspaper. Like, it's a very different environment. It's very more real.
So Friday Night Lights and how they portray that is completely real.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
That's
People
crazy.
know you. People from other towns know you. You know how you kinda like a good metaphor for this would be like, in college, you're playing against a team and you watch their film and you're like, "Hey, that guy, like, I know that guy. I've seen him, on ESPN before." Like, it's like that, but even in high school, guys from different towns, even different divisions of school be like, "Hey, I know that guy." Right? It's a way of life, and which is a double-edged sword because, I played with a lot of guys. I knew a lot of guys whose, parents start to try to live vicariously through their kids. That's kinda sad. My dad, thankfully, was never like that. He just let my coaches coach me. He never really My dad never coached me unless I wanted his opinion on stuff, but after games, he would unless I wanna talk about it, he never brought it up. And there were plenty of times where my coaches were getting in my ass or whatever, and he just sat there and he's like, "Hey, that's how you gotta learn." Like, I remember, I think a couple weeks ago, we were in Lake Placid just talking about football and letting your kids do football. And I know you guys were talking about head injury, and I get that, but for me, it's more than that. It's more about that, like, hey, can your kid take instruction? And I guess this is with every sport, but can your kid take hard coaching from somebody that's not their freaking parent? You know what I mean? And that's, I think, the value of football.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you just said is huge, and I think it's something that we probably don't emphasize enough is when you said your dad just kinda let you get coached by your coaches, right? Not complaining about it, not changing. It's something that it's cliche because you hear it so much, like, listen to your coach and do it, but I think especially at least where Troy and I are, there's a lot of, like, questioning coaches and transferring schools and should I go to private school or public school, and sometimes it's valid, right? Because you can't control who your coaches are all the time
Right.
unless you change the schools, but by the same token, it's like anything else. If you're on a football team, your head coach is your head coach, and you're gonna be coached by them, and you're gonna do what they say, right? And I think that sometimes I don't know if I've seen it more recently, but you get people kind of, maybe not being as coachable as they could otherwise be because they have so much access to other information. Like, we know that there's a pretty big divide between, private school and public school, at least in Massachusetts, with terms of, like, football competency. So because nowadays you have access to, like, kind of so much more information, you get athletes questioning coaches more. What they may have valid points, but I think something that might be kind of missed a little bit is they're still your coach. Like, you can disagree with your coach all you want, but at the end of the day, if you're playing football, you show up, you get coached, you do the things they say to whatever fault they may be. But I don't know if that's a new phenomenon or that's kind of always been there, but I think
Yeah.
that's really good by your pops being a coach, understanding the importance of kind of letting a coach. And I had another question. So you said you graduated with 150 kids. How many
105.
Oh, 105, sorry. Um, that's the CET. How many of them went on to play college football? Like, how many from your graduating class in football went on to play college football?
Probably 6. I think
And
6.
is that normal for, like, the school that you came from?
6%.
No, I think no, 6 guys. 6 guys.
Yeah, well, if you
My senior
oh, yeah,
class of
so it'd be
dudes wasn't
less
very
than
big.
That'd be
more than
more, right? Yeah.
6%.
It's 50
It's
men.
105 people total in your class?
Mhm. Yep.
Oh, I thought you meant 105 people on your football team.
No.
They
Nope.
were
There's
all
only
on the football
105
team.
people in your class?
Yep. I
It
knew
was the
everybody in my
football team
graduating
and the
class.
girls. It was the football
Yeah.
team and the girls.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh my god.
Is
Yeah,
that
no,
was
like,
that higher or lower for, like, a football class
we were
of
low.
Oxford?
We were low. Like, my graduating class as a whole was pretty low. The class underneath me and the class above me were pretty much larger, and the class above me had more that signed to go play college football than my class did.
Did your high school was there 2 different high schools in your town?
Yes, there was 2, and they were separated by 3
Okay.
miles.
Okay, that's interesting because our town where we grew up is like 18,000 people, and there was
And it's
one high
2
school.
towns.
And
It's
it's
2
2
towns,
towns.
1 high school, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 2 towns, 1 high school, and we're graduating with like 400 plus people every year.
Well, the history of Oxford
And
is
we're
weird.
not good at football.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
not sending 6 players per year.
No.
The history is weird because
Some.
they had talked about trying to combine the schools in Oxford. You have Oxford High School and Lafayette High School, which Lafayette County is a county school. That's where I went. The history, they try to combine them, and there was just so much pushback. It's so weird. Like, there are people in Oxford that are really big into high school sports, and they're like, hey, we'll never combine them. It's like the biggest rivalry. They wrote a book about a rivalry. It's called Y'all versus Us. And it was so big that my senior year, we played on national television. Two high schools in
Did you
Mississippi. Huh?
read the book?
No.
Did you read the book?
Actually, it was my first.
Why is it?
Go ahead.
Just why is it so big? Just because it's 2 high schools in the same town?
I just think a lot of tradition behind it. And I think that goes back to the football culture in the South it's like we don't have anything else. Like we don't have professional sports. We have college and we have high school. And a lot of the people, especially in the Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, like it's just rural communities, right? And so the football games are essentially a community event. And guys, alumni will show up to the games, unks that played 40 years ago wearing their Lettermans, right? And they're like, oh, well, you're wearing number 8 now? Well, I wore number 8 in 1960, so you better not suck. That kind of like.
Troy, I think we should go to a game with our Letterman jackets. Bring the culture back.
God.
Yeah,
Dude, that is such a crazy difference because the 8th grade team in our town this year didn't have enough players to have a team. There's no 8th grade team. Like, that is the complete opposite. And, like, nobody even goes to, like, the Thanksgiving game anymore. Like, I'm sure if you guys do Thanksgiving football down there every year on Thanksgiving, I'm sure there's thousands of people there. There is no one here anymore. Like, it's supposed to be like a tradition, Thanksgiving football, and no one goes. Just
Is that true?
Yeah, just the recent alumni that graduated the school from like 2 or 3 years, and that's it.
Have you guys seen Last Chance U?
Unfortunately.
So can I go on a bit of a tangent about that show?
Do it.
Real quick. I watched a little bit of it. I think I was in college or maybe right before I went. I forget exactly when it came out. Around that era where I was like really pushing to try and make it. And I had to stop watching it because I remember an episode where it was like, all right, dude, you get a full ride to LSU. All you have to do is not miss more than 6 classes the rest of the semester. And meanwhile, I didn't have a full ride to a SEC or Power 5 school, right? I'm trying to fight. And this asshole doesn't show up and he gets his offer pulled. And it's just like, I can't watch that with people like pissing down their leg with the dream that I'm working so hard to attain. It's like, it goes back to just being like grateful and understanding the opportunities and how fortunate you are to be able to play football. And so that might have just been one season or one episode, but I got really turned off from that show.
Yeah, so those first 2 seasons where they cover East Mississippi and which is in central Mississippi, there's nothing there. That is my high school. Like that is my high school experience. Exactly like that show. And I tell people that. They say, "What's it like playing football in Mississippi in high school?" Watch that show. From the coach, from them screaming, from guys not going to class, from our starting quarterback, my junior year, he was a year older than me, senior, Jeremy Liggins, nationally ranked, recruited. Les Miles, when he was at the coach at LSU, he was at one of our high school games standing on a goalpost in the end zone. And then Dan Mullen flew his helicopter to our game and landed on our baseball field. And that guy couldn't qualify because he never went to class. Ever. Right? So it's like that, but besides that.
Can't imagine, no disrespect to Mississippi, can't imagine the classes are too hard down there. So why not just fucking go?
You're right. And, you know, for us, even the teachers in high school, I mean, they would work with you too. They were like, hey, man, like, you know, we'll do whatever it takes to pass you. We'll do whatever it takes. And some guys just kind of, that's why the JUCO environment in Mississippi is a really big, besides California and Kansas, and Texas, Mississippi's JUCO football is really good. And most of the guys that I played with ended up going to JUCO. Easier to qualify through the clearinghouse, and some guys just weren't mentally prepared to jump straight into a 4-year school. They needed that buffer, which now is great because those 2 years don't count towards your eligibility. So any kid out there that are like, hey, I don't want to go to JUCO because my pride. No, dude, go to JUCO.
That's a lot of it up here. 100%.
Yeah.
That's a lot of it. Kids won't go to JUCO because they're like, oh, the stigma of going to JUCO, like it's way cooler to go to a whatever school or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, I don't want to go to the JUCO. I don't want the stigma of going to JUCO. That's all. They won't say I don't want the stigma of it, but that's 100% why they won't do it.
Their parents
Right,
don't want the
there you go.
stigma.
Their parents don't want to. Yeah, their parents don't want to tell other parents, oh yeah, Tommy's at blah blah community college playing football, like blah 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 blah. Like their parents don't want to say anything. They don't want to be looked down upon.
Which, we have an in-house GPC success story from JUCO. That's where my brother went. That's where Alec went.
Yeah.
Swallowed his
Then he
pride
played
and
at
got it
Tulane.
done. Yeah. Yeah, he got into an even better school. There is a huge stigma, and I think every chance we get, if we think there's someone that would benefit from it, we try them. I don't know if we've had anyone actually go, but we try to encourage it. A lot of people don't want to leave home and go to community college somewhere else, but it is a really, really smart way to chase a dream. Because it's also smart even just from an academic standpoint, because you get used to the college environment. You bang out all your gen eds, which are going to be essentially the same classes no matter what school you go to. Like English is English. Like all your basic introductory courses are very similar, and they transfer credits. So if you go to JUCO for 2 years, now it's even more enticing because you get your eligibility, you're 2 years older, you get your credits, then you go to a 4-year school, you have those credits carry over because they're all gen eds, they all transfer. And then what? If you have to go through the walk-on route, then okay, you're paying 2 years for a 4-year degree, incredible deal. Or you're taking those 2 years to try to get a full ride, also incredible deal, even if it's only a couple $1,000 in tuition from a community college, still a great deal. And I think that it's common with a lot of things. It's not just sports, but it's something that I would like our athletes to embody more is their decisions are so controlled by outside perception and like what society or other people think and external influences that they make a less optimal choice for their future because of external influence. And that's one thing that we try to cover. Like you always want to be, intrinsically influence is a little bit stronger when you're trying to get stuff like this done. If you're influenced by outside factors, it's good to use them as motivation. Coaches that tell you won't be able to do it, or friends that are harping on you. That stuff's good for motivation. But if you're not like driven by that intrinsic internal motivation, then like it's going to be a lot harder. And I wish people would trust that more. Because everyone that I've met that has followed that type of logic or thought process has ended up significantly better off. I remember that similar to how
when you look at the modern landscape of college football nowadays, the most important, the most valuable currency you have as an athlete is no longer your stars in high school. Nobody cares about that because it's some beat writer that got some degree in journalism from the liberal arts school that is showing up to every other game, is rating you on his opinion. That's where the stars come from, and you can buy stars. Now it's game film. If you have game film, if you have 100, just call it 150 snaps of game film in 2 years of JUCO ball, you're going to look a lot more appealing to a college coach at a mid-major to major than a kid out of high school who might be same parity athleticism, is very similar. And if you got that game film, and here's a great example, even though this kid went to a Division III school, Trinidad Chambliss from Ole Miss, quarterback, just beat LSU, and they're praising Lane Kiffin and his staff for calling this kid the biggest pull out of the portal because he played Division III football. He went, got the film, put up the numbers. There was a picture of him with Brian Kelly at Notre Dame when he was a kid at a camp. And they're like, where did this kid come from? He's a freak athlete. Right now, he's rated as one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. Lane Kiffin's like, hey, man, he had great game film. Right?
Don't care that he came from a D3. He can ball.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't
Can you
matter.
say it? Can you say that again for the guys in the back listening? Say that again, LA, because that's very important. And I just want you to say that whole thing one more time, abbreviated.
Yeah, if you go just look up the starting quarterback for the Ole Miss Rebels right now, Trinidad Chambliss, whatever his last name is, came from a Division III school, just beat LSU, beat Arkansas. He was named the starter 3 weeks ago because the other starter got hurt, and they're praising this kid as the best pull out of the portal. They didn't pay 15 mil for this kid. He's not like Lane Kiffin came in and said, "Hey man, you got great game film. We're gonna give you a shot." And he was a nobody. Like literally last year, they pulled up a stat. Last year, they took a photo of one of his games he was playing at. There was less than 5,000 people at this game he was playing at. And then now he just played in front of the second biggest crowd in Ole Miss history and won, right? And now they're number 4 in the nation, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like this shit does, like game film trumps everything. Game film,
Yeah.
game film, game film. If you can go somewhere and you can get game film, get it. That's the most important thing. Nothing else matters.
I can think of at least 5 to 6 guys that Troy will have to cut that up and send it to him, send them in our group, because there's so many guys that even when they got to play college football, it's usually before we end up kind of meeting them, and maybe they're playing at a Division III school, and we go through an off-season training with them, and these guys, like, we don't know who is advising them. This is kind of probably a testament to the lack of support and emphasis in football in our area. Like, these guys are falling through the cracks, and we keep telling them, but it's good to hear it from you, from somebody else too, is like, they are freak athletes and very good football players. It's just not, there's no spotlight as much in Massachusetts, especially if you come from public school. And like, we're going through their numbers, and we had a kid, he plays at Worcester State, and he might be the fastest athlete I've ever met. like could probably run a 4.3 untrained. And we just keep telling them, it's hard to get them to believe, because their whole life it's been the opposite. Instead of being like, yeah, you can play at Ole Miss or Arkansas, like you can do this. This is the dream. Like you don't get as much support. You get, what, you think you're one of those guys? And then we find these kids, and they have the qualities that could make them a big time athlete and have a really successful career. We had another kid from that same Worcester State team who he was transferring to UMass just because he wanted to transfer. He wanted to go to a better, stronger academic school. And we're looking at his numbers this offseason. We're like, dude, you walk on, like try out for that team. And he's like, oh, I don't think so. I don't think so. Lo and behold, we're on him pretty much every day. We're really on him. And he went to the walk-on tryouts and he made the team. He's on the roster now, which is like
Huge.
We want to see more of that, because that's where we talk about how can we provide the best service to athletes to help benefit them. Stuff like that, stories and changing beliefs in terms of what an individual athlete is capable of is everything. Like that's what you try to aspire to achieve when you're coaching or mentoring or teaching younger athletes, is you want to get something in their brain that changes them so they get a tangibly better outcome than before they met you or before they trained with you. So I thought I got goosebumps listening to that story, just because we live for that kind of
Chambliss attended Forest Hills Northern High School in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He went to commit to Ferris State University, a Division II school, not Division III, but D2. So 2022, he did not play. 2023, he played in 9 games and only threw for 354 yards and rushed for 301 yards. So didn't get as much playing time. He appeared in 9 games and threw 20. It was 21 of 33. 2024, he played in 15 games. He threw for almost 3,000 yards and rushed for another 1,000 yards. So he was responsible for 4,000 yards of offense that season as a Division II kid. So he put up 4,000 yards of offense, and they won the D2 national championship that year. After that, he hit the portal, and they're like, hey, let's kick him fucking ball.
Dude, it's just an age old, like, when you think of, like, would you rather be a small fish in a big pond or a big fish in a small pond? And right now, the way that college athletics are stacked for guys that, because NIL and the portal came and they said, okay, all these big schools are going to monopolize all of this, right? They're going to get all the best players. How can we incentivize these smaller leagues and these smaller teams? Well, for JUCO, it was like, we're going to waive the eligibility thing. So you get 2 free years of college football. I don't care where you go. That's 2 free years. Okay, call the first year your building year, right? You're just building. It's a free year. It's hey, pass, go, collect $200. Just learn to play the game. And then you get a whole nother year to become the starter and be the guy. Be the guy. And then, okay, and then say, just as a conservative, just say like, okay, you get signed to a D2, D3 school. Go be the guy there too. And now you got 4 free years, and then you can still take a red shirt. Dude, these kids now can take 7 years.
7 years. Well, another thing too is if you look at it, he went to the Division II, did not play first year, so he redshirted that year. And most kids are not playing their freshman year and being like, I'm going to transfer. I'm leaving now. And he went back sophomore year and did not see much time at all, and then comes back as a junior and fucking 4,000 yards of offense. So it's like most kids get to that point. Now we see it a lot too of like, year 1, they don't play, they're ready to transfer. Year 2, they come back, they don't play much, they're fucking out of there, and they end up in the same spot. They go to another school and they have to wait because they weren't there building behind, buying into the system and like almost, I don't want to say waiting their turn, but like kind of waiting your turn. Like in good programs, like freshmen don't play. But now for whatever reason, freshmen think that they need to play. And in good programs, freshmen don't play, sophomores don't play a lot. It's a lot of juniors and seniors that play, and everyone below them, everyone younger than them is learning and getting better, using those freshman sophomore year to actually get better on scout team, get the reps they need, go against the juniors and seniors so that next year when they leave, it's their time to play. But a lot of people don't really see that now. I feel like a lot of people don't see the path. Like
Elliot Chambliss came in as a backup too, didn't he? To start the
Yeah.
season. Yeah.
Yep. Back up to Austin Simmons,
Right. To a
who
big
was
time
named the
recruit,
guy.
yeah.
Like Jackson
Right.
Dart goes to the draft, and everyone was like, Austin Simmons the guy. We're ride or die Austin Simmons. And now everyone's like, Simmons better hit the portal, man, because we're riding with Trinidad. They're hanging up.
Yeah, I saw that. The
Trinidad and
Trinidad
Tobago
Tobago flags. Yeah. I saw that.
Well,
They're everywhere.
it said, well, there's another thing too. It said Simmons got hurt in the season opener and then Trinidad started. And it's like, all it takes is, that's the opportunity he needed. He was fucking ready. He knew he could ball. That was the opportunity he needed. Boom, someone down, I'm in. Here we go.
Right
So-
place, right time. Yep.
If you made it this far, and this is something for you guys to think about too, I think the coolest thing about hearing those types of stories, at least for me, like my favorite thing is realizing that that can be anyone, because you can't connect these dots. Like when he's year 2, he played in 9 games with 300 yards. Think of how insane he sounds saying, yeah, I'm going to transfer out of here and I'm going to go play big time. Like, think of how the lack of support or motivation that he probably got. Maybe maybe he's got 1 or 2 coaches. Maybe he's got one buddy that's telling him, yeah, you can do it. I believe in you. And this is to tie it back to why you need to be intrinsically motivated, why this needs to be a decision that you're doing, no matter what sport it is no one else can see the path that you can make for yourself. Because you can see it. There's no shortage of weird roundabout ways to get success. Whatever you want to do, there's no shortage of them. Any way you want. But you have to believe that it is possible and that if you make the right choices, the right things will happen. And you can't look at where you're at right now and then decide that next few years, right? If you're playing Division III college football and you have a couple 100 yards, if it's a dream of yours, you basically have to say, okay, how can I make this dream a reality? What do I have to do? And you see it time and time again of people doing it. That's why it's so celebrated, because it's so rare. But I think what people don't realize is how hard and how difficult and how ostracizing that person is in that moment before that huge come up. And that's what people don't, that's why it's so celebrated. It's like, how did they do that? It's like this crazy stroke of fate. It's they put in so much work and they stayed dedicated and they kept pushing and knocking on doors until one opened up for them. But I mean, we see it with a lot of our guys. Guys won't knock on doors unless we get on them. Right. And then you still celebrate these incredible, underdog stories on how they did this crazy thing. It's like, well, they kept knocking on doors and they put the work in, but it's really hard to believe that that's possible before it happens. And it's like I think it's a really hard idea to convey to other people, right? I mean, you guys are nodding your head because you get it. Like we've lived it. Everybody here has lived it, but it's a really hard thing to convey to other people about how to get that mindset shift. It's incredibly difficult. So if you're listening, try your best to just change the way you think.
Dude, even if you break it down for somebody who's like, okay, like I have so much input athletically from coaches, from family, from uncles, cousins, whatever you want. Take a step back and dumb it down to just supply and demand, right? Why, like, all of the demand out there, like, you got to think how many colleges there are in the country, not just Division I, go all the way down to JUCO. And all these college coaches at every level is saying, hey, I want guys that can come in here, that can be bought into my culture and who can pick it up, who can learn it, and who can contribute on the field. Okay, take that demand and then backtrack and say, like, how can I be the best supply for that demand, right? If that's studying more film, if that's increasing my 40 time or decreasing it, if it's increasing my squat max, right? Being a student of the game, right? Like, those are all things that, like, how can I make myself be more sellable to this high demand that's out there? Because a lot of people will say, hey, I don't think I can do it because, I'm on social media, I'm scrolling, I'm seeing highlights from like 7-on-7 clinics. I'm seeing all these, like, I don't see where I fit in. And that is a fallacy. That's like a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. That's saying, like, I don't even stand a chance. I can't even get in the ring. Right. That's stupid. Like, just dumb it down to supply and demand. There's a lot of demand. Be somebody that is in that upper echelon of supply, because there's going to be a lot of guys that say, like, hey, I want to do this, but they're not contributing to their own essentially resume, right? Just doing the little things right. Like, just watch film. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
just
you mentioned that, and I was like, that's a huge one, because I think I don't know about you, Coach, but what I've found is if we get an athlete, if they're reasonably athletic, if we get 3 years with them, their numbers are going to be at a Division I level. Like, it's actually far, for the most part, right? They have to have a good base. They have to have the right size. But most everyone, if they put in work for like 3 solid years, some good off seasons, they're going to have those tangibles to be able to compete at a high level of athletics, no matter what the sport is. For the most part, there are exceptions. Some people start out with better hands than others, but for the most part, that's not unreasonable. It also depends on how hard they work. I guess there's more than what I just said, but where I was getting was the learning of football is probably, you were entrenched in football at a young age, and Troy and I were just talking about this the other day on the phone, but studying the game of football or studying your sport, whether it be football or basketball or even track, you can study track. You can understand that, right? Like, that is, every sport has like its own kind of meta or like understanding or mindset in order to play that sport. It was something that I kind of realized when I shifted to play rugby. It's like a total like shift on how the game is played. And I think that's something that is a very low hanging fruit. And people leave a lot of meat on the bone when they talk about trying. Everyone wants to say, well, I run this 40, I should be able to play at this level. Like, I squat this, I should be able to play at this level. I was under that same kind of, I just went by the testing numbers. Hence why, we train guys, and I'm a combine guy now, but always have been. But one thing that I didn't do that I could have done that would have been far more beneficial is studying football earlier to really understand the game, because it's not physically taxing. Yeah, it's mentally taxing, but you put your all into it, and it's a way to really surpass a lot of people that get lost in the weeds of just trying to increase their squat, bench, jump, sprint. Like, if you can do those things, which if you come train with us, you can. If you can do those things, then all you have to do is learn football and you're there. Or all you have to do is, if you're doing basketball, all you got to do is learn basketball, get really skilled, get really good at it. If you're a wrestler, all you have to do is study wrestling, right? Because it's not that hard it takes a long time and it is hard and challenging, but in the grand scheme of trying to accomplish very difficult things, the physical qualities and improving them might be on the easier side of it when you look at all the things, the mental aspect, and then the studying of actually it's like a whole other subject. And I think it's kind of looked at as the physical qualities are like this, most of it. And then football, you got to know football. Like it's thrown in there as a last sentence. Like you got to know football, you got to study the sport. But I think based on even just the story that you told and what you were just talking about, it just resonated with me as something that, especially around here, is not emphasized as much. I mean, we see high school coaches that probably at this point I don't want to say anything bad. They're understanding
to your point of supply and demand. There's roughly 895 colleges with football in the United States, including JUCO, for a total of roughly 90,000 players. Now, if you look at it and you break it down by how many new players do schools typically take in each year? Each year, when you look at all the colleges, there's roughly 22,500 new players going into a program every year. So if you don't think you're good enough to be top 22,500, then, I mean, you need to fucking think that. I mean, Jesus Christ, when you break
work
it
on the
down like
self-esteem a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Well, and like, you just think about it, like, think about how many guys, and I don't even know this, but like how many senior high school football players there are in the country per year. And you say there is an X percentage of that group that do not have the mental fortitude alone. And that's baseline. That is like complete baseline to have the even basic mentality to go on and play college football at a higher level. You're going to knock out a good percentage, I would say 50 to 60 of that number just off of mentality alone, right? And that's without even looking at physical attributes yet. And then you stack on top of that high football IQ or knowledge of the game, and you show up to your first day on campus and you're having discussions with your special teams coach or your defensive coordinator on the difference in zone blitzing out of a Tampa 2 defense, and you're a freshman, and they're going to be like, hey, we can put that guy on the field. We can put him on special teams because at least he knows down and distance. He knows where the ball needs to play. Like, he's just so much farther ahead of that greater number of high school athletes coming out each year just by doing little things, right? That the gurus nowadays will say, oh, no, you need to do more. You need to do more. You need to do it. No, that's horseshit, dude. That's horseshit. Like, I don't know. That's just me, though.
So I'm just going to use this podcast to throw you into a pitch right here. So Troy and I were talking about this. How can we provide a better service to the athletes that we train? And this came up as teaching football, right? Because you know, coaches, even high school coaches, they're limited in what they can teach, even if they do have a good understanding. You can't get every single kid really well versed in any one subject. It's the challenge of teaching. It's the same way with college and high school strength coaches. Their goal is to keep the whole team as a group kind of just healthy, moving in the right direction. There's no, customized or personalized. You can't get the most out of each individual athlete because that's not the job. That's not what they're focused on. So what we had thought is maybe we have some sessions where we teach football a little bit more in depth, open it up to questions. Maybe you want to be a part of that. Maybe you want to get on a Zoom. We send out a link to some guys and we just have some football talks. And
yeah, man, here's lesson number one. If you're playing linebacker and you get a green dog tag to that coverage, fucking go. Just pull the trigger, dude. Pull the trigger at 100%, and you might be wrong. You might be dead wrong. But if you show the effort and you rush the passer and you can get there, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, dude. Like, what are they going to say? Oh, you should have dropped back to a strong hook. Nah, dude. I'm aggressive. I'm going, man. I'm going.
I was in roughly seniors in high school playing football this year. On average, 7% of those will move on to play college football. So 17 to 21,000 of those will go on to play college football every year.
Coach, I like this new trend of you pulling up stats for us.
Dude,
I'm
that's
our
awesome.
Jamie. I'm our Jamie. I'm doing Brandon's job. I'm our
Yeah,
Jamie.
it's good for you. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Look at the
Speaking
numbers.
of JUCO and Brandon, you went to JUCO,
Yeah, it's
but
terrible.
for a
No,
completely
just kidding.
different sport.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different sport, but it's the same.
And out in California, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, out in California, same dynamic. We should do a pod on that another time. Bring on some JUCO guys from different sports, get some perspectives on it. It's funny though. I mean, yeah, it was different sport obviously, but I had the same pressure coming out of my hometown. Track was what I was going to do in college. Ended up by the time I was a senior, I knew that was a sport I was good at. And the pressure was to go to a 4-year. So I went to Washington State, which was still in the Pac-12 at the time. It was a really good program at the time, and frankly, I was good enough to make it, and I made it, but it wasn't the right decision. There was a lot of pressure on me to go to a 4-year, and I remember ending up back in JUCO anyway in my second year, and I remember one day I'm at practice, and I'm like, fuck, I'm at JUCO anyway. You know what I mean? Like, the whole pressure was like, there was all this pressure on me, because I came from a town, and it's interesting hearing from you, Troy, and Otto, because I didn't really know much about Massachusetts, and it sounds like your kind of hometown dynamic was a little bit more similar to mine. There's just pressure not to go in junior college. Back then, it's kind of mentioned how it's changed, but kids didn't really do, they didn't really go D1 in sports. Now from my hometown, they started to, but back when I was in high school, I was the only person that year that did, or one of two people that did in any sport. And so the pressure was not to go to JUCO. And I remember, I was like, it wasn't even an option, and I should have just gone from the get-go. Would have changed my direction a lot. And like I said, one day I just walked out there, and I'm like, I'm in this ghetto ass junior college in the middle of the city, and I just look up, the sun's setting, and I was like, fuck, man, I ended up here anyways. Like, what was I worried about? People's perception, you know what I mean? They had a perception of me for 8 months, and then I was back where I started. But
I wonder why that is. Your area in San Diego, California, our area in Massachusetts.
Well, I was suburban Sacramento, but yeah, same
okay.
shit.
Well, it's
different shit, but
is it just
it's like we
the
talked
wealthier
about
parts of the
Yeah, I
country
think
are
it's
just
wealthy.
No, I don't want
Yeah.
I don't want to have to tell Jody up the street that
Right.
Brandon's at junior college while her son is at Stanford.
Right. No, I
Well,
think it's
so-
wealth. I think it's the dynamics like that. I mean, some of it was sport pressure too. Like I said, like my school wasn't that good at sports. So when I was perceived as a good athlete, it was like if I went to JUCO, it'd be like, oh, I thought this guy was like the truth. You know what I mean? And it's like, so that's part of it. A lot of it was just wealth and education perception, and not to get sociological, but where I grew up too, there's a lot of Asian and Indian second gen immigrants in our school. So there's very high pressure on oh, you got to go to Berkeley, you got to go to Caltech, you got to go to, so
Well-
that's part of it too, completely independent of sports. So it's kind of I don't know.
Well, it goes back to
twofold.
what we talked about on the last podcast. It's communal support, but also that same community kind of dictates standards and the norm. And a lot of people, like what you were saying that your parents didn't do, Elliot, your dad didn't kind of live vicariously through it or push you in a certain way. And, none of us are parents yet, so that's a whole other deal. But what it
That we
seems
know
like
of.
is, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, I can't speak for you guys, but it seems like there is a lot of pressure to when you live in certain communities to fit like you said, Elliot, that not playing football as a guy was very strange. So there's that societal pressure to kind of fit the norm of wherever you are geographically. So it's interesting to hear the differences that, there sounds like there's few differences between where you grew up, Brendan, and our neck of the woods, because there is still that pressure even when it comes to JUCO, which I think is not necessarily positive, because if you're trying to succeed or make a path towards success, then it happens, but it shouldn't matter the societal pressure, because you're trying to do something that's not common, right? If you're trying to do something that's not common, then you have to kind of take actions that are different than what most people do. But that's easier said than done, especially when you get stigma around whether it be JUCO or whatever specific sport you play, right? Like we even get that around here. It's like, oh, you want to play football? Like, why don't you want to play lacrosse? Even little things like that, and just conversations between parents and teachers and coaches too. Like the school itself can treat athletes and different ambitions differently. Like if you want to go play college football from our high school, you're a weirdo. Why are you wasting your time? Like, what? Okay. But you shouldn't devalue if that's someone's passion, that's their passion, right? That's kind of when we talked about the benefit of sport is everyone kind of has their own deal and you can mesh and share perspectives under that one commonality of sport. It's kind of, I mean, it should be that way. It isn't that way, but you should not be afraid to just kind of do different things if you're trying to do something exceptional. And you should be prepared to be criticized, and you should be prepared for your community and the world around you to not support you, especially the more exceptional and the more rare it is. I guess that's kind of cliche to every like cringe motivational post you see on like the internet, but it is true to a degree, right? I guess that's why it goes viral, is because there is a grain of truth to it. And I don't know. I hope the guys that, are coached by Brandon and us, and hopefully they made it an hour into the podcast to keep hearing these messages, but you got to take that.
Elliot,
You got to take that into heart. Yeah. Let's get
can
some
you
more.
please tell me about NASCAR. So at the beginning of this, you said you just signed a deal with NASCAR. Can you please explain? Because I don't know what you're talking about. Brandon and Otto might, but if not for the viewers, explain for me. What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Congrats,
Yeah,
by the
so
way.
yeah, this happened. Ironically, this was brought up a few years ago when I was training in Nashville. My coach in Nashville was a college football strength coach, was at Louisville, Texas, another smaller school, but he had coached a guy at Louisville, their punter. This was 3 years, 3.5, 4 years ago, and he goes, "Hey, man, like, did you know that NASCAR pit crews are former collegiate football players or NFL players?" And I was like, I had no idea because I didn't grow up in racing. I grew up with football, and most people do. I mean, and I'm still learning this as I go. But what I have learned is there are people that grow up with racing. Like racing is a thing, and it's a strong thing. And so last year, I reached out to this guy that my coach used to coach in college, and I reached out to him, and he goes, "Yeah, man, all the pit crew guys, they're former athletes, college, NFL guys. One guy on the team that I just signed with won a Super Bowl at Denver." Right. And so I go do a team workout with them, and lo and behold, they're like, "Hey, man, you got what we want." So they gave me a contract last week and signed that. And so,
So
yeah,
when you do a team workout with NASCAR pit crews, what are you doing? What do you
they
mean
try
by
to
that?
they
Like,
try to
are you
break my will. They
okay?
tried, and it didn't work.
Nothing you ain't used to. Nothing you ain't used to.
Yeah, and
But like, what do they consist of? Are you throwing tires? Are you seeing how fast you can fucking do the jack? Like,
yeah.
Wait,
Yeah,
to get the
can you
car
do
up?
that again? Can you do that
Yeah.
again, Coach?
It's actually just one. It's one pump.
One
One
pump,
pump?
chump.
It's
One
one
pump?
Chump.
I'm used to
One
one
pump.
pump, so I might be good at that.
It's one pump. They
Yes.
got me on the jack right now, and it's one pump. You run out
Perfect for
there,
you.
you run in front of a car going 50 miles an hour, and you hit it. And the cool thing is it is very similar to football. It is like being on a football team again. The teamwork, the team workouts, you can only be as good as the person next to you, right? And then you're accountable to the guys on your crew. And another complimentary thing is bobsled is a racing sport. So coming from a racing background sport, I was automatically like, they're like, okay, this guy understands that we're looking for hundreds, tens, thousands, right? Like that's what we determine our success. However, the methodology, the way they go about that is different than bobsled, where bobsled is about peak performance and numbers. Here, it's about, can you do the job? Yeah, and we could train you to do the job. But if you don't fit in culturally, you're out of here. And a good example of that is they said when I first started, they had a guy come in. He'd won a national championship at Clemson as a linebacker, couldn't finish the workout. We had an NFL guy show up last week to the team workout, couldn't finish, threw up, middle of it. And they're like, that guy's not cut out for it. Do I understand fully, completely yet of their like why they do that? I don't. I just know that like I showed up, my first workout I did with them, they put us in teams of 5. I only know one guy, the guy that's recruited me. And they say, all right, here's your team of 5. You have a 50-pound med ball and a 20-pound med ball. You're going to run 1.5 miles and don't let that med ball touch the ground. You're going to pass it off between each other. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm not a bitch. Like, I'm not going to make myself look weak. Right. And so, it's a lot of it going back to your athletes and, as they prepare for the next step, it's like are you mentally strong enough to do the work that's in front of you, right?
And maybe that with the racing in mind is, are you mentally strong enough to be able to do whatever we need you to do for and be locked in for 4 hours? Because sometimes those races are fucking long.
They're long.
And you have to go out there and be a pit crew multiple times over 3-4 hours or whatever it is.
Yep. Yep. And then their time or performance is like bobsled, 8 to 9 second pit stops. That's what they're looking for. If you can operate in those parameters, and some tracks, all tracks are different. Some tracks like Darlington or Daytona even, or Martinsville, they'll run 8 to 11 stops. That's a lot of stops. And then you'll go to a track like, I don't know, Talladega, and they might do 3 or 4, and that's just on the docket for the day. Yeah, it's I'm really fresh. I'm the newest guy on the team right now, so I'm going through the learning process. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities with football and bobsled, all kind of culminating into one sport. And I brought out another bobsled teammate of ours, Logan, last week or 2 weeks ago. Picked it up. He did a 3-day. He did practice, did workouts with the team, and they want to sign him right now. They're like, he's a guy. We need him. So it's more about fitting culturally and being somebody that can, do hard things and be coachable. That's a big thing, coachable, because you're doing a sport that nobody grows up doing ever. And then it's like, okay, can we translate you into this and make a great living doing it? And that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. It's so cool. I remember I had a couple coaches when I was in college float that idea by me as pit crew for NASCAR. But now that I'm hearing about it, man, it's pretty sweet. Maybe
Dude, we can get you in the
GPC
door.
opens up a branch down there. Yeah.
And get you in the door.
Yeah. That's awesome though. Really exciting.
What's a week of training and practice look like for that? Like, this is intriguing to me. Do you just go and your group goes and they just practice doing the full pit thing? Like, are you not allowed to say? Is this insider information about how pit crews work? And another pit crew might hear you talking about this pit crew and pick up some tricks of the trade.
Yeah, no. That's a great question. And the week is actually, I mean, it's just like football, the training week. Right now they're in the postseason, so they're in the playoffs, and so they've got about 4 or 5 weeks left of the regular season. The season's long. It starts end of February and it runs to November 2nd. Every weekend, right?
Sounds hot.
Yeah, in the summer, and that's why they do those hard workouts on Thursday. It's basically a mental toughness style workout. And it's basically a way to, can we put you with a group of guys? Can you do a hard workout and can you maintain your composure and your attention to detail? Because it'll be 100-something degrees in Las Vegas and you're racing and you're wearing a fire suit and you still got to do your job because there's money on the line. Racing's big money, right? But for your work week, essentially, Mondays are off. Like today, they moved to an optional day. So I went in, did some drill work on the practice cars they have in the shop, did a workout at the gym, did some more practice stuff after, and I was done at 12:30, right? Wednesdays is a full day where they'll break each team up individually into their cars and they go out and they have a full practice. So they have coaches out there and they'll say, hey, we're going to run 5 to 6 stops with this group. And that's the 1 car, the 99 car, the 88, the 87, the 16, and the 10, right? And then the new guys like myself will go in the end, and it's more coaching for us as we learn. So that's Wednesday, and Wednesday's a film day. So they have a whole data analytics team. They all wear cameras on their helmets, and they're going through and they pull up the times, the numbers. They're measuring times from like, okay, when the jack drops, how fast are you running around the front of the car? How fast when you jack the car up, how fast are you getting the first tire on the front? So they're measuring all these times and they're stacking this data up with other pit crews on pit road. So there's 32 teams. So you're constantly measured in data versus everybody else in the field. So that's Wednesday. Wednesday's practice and film. Thursday is like what you would almost call like a walkthrough day, where it's more scenario based. So the pit crew coach will say, "Hey, we're going to do 4 stops with the one car. We're going to get some bad entries into the pit. We're going to go long, short, and maybe sideways to simulate different environments you'll get at different racetracks." And then you do the hard, Thursday workout. And then after that, your work week is done. And then you have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's races Friday, it's the lowest level circuit races, the truck races. Saturday's the Xfinity race, so it's a car. And then Sunday is the big boy, the Cup Series race. So some guys will pit all 3. So they'll fly out, they have a chartered plane, they fly them out Friday morning, and they'll stay all weekend. Some guys only do Saturday, Sunday. Some guys only do Sunday. So if you say, just for example, you do Saturday, Sunday, you do Xfinity and Cup Series. You fly out Saturday morning, you land, they give you a car, you drive to the track, or your hotel, I think, first, and then you go to the track, you compete Saturday night, go back to the hotel. Sunday morning, a lot of guys get up, do a lift, and then they go compete Sunday, and then they fly home right after the race. And that's it. That's essentially your work week. So it's almost like professional baseball, where there's so much competition that it's more about managing the stress load throughout the whole season.
Yeah, that's a long season to be performing at a really high level too. Because like I would think also one habit that you might develop early on, if it's not, like if it's not focused on performance and you're doing that, maybe the first 4 weeks, you don't think anything of it. Week 6, 7, vets are probably like, oh yeah, mid-season. But then, yeah, there you go. I didn't even think of that. But
6, 7.
then, oh God, we're so old and washed up. That's so bad. That's so bad when we make the jokes, or like
No,
when
but
Nate made the
you
joke.
bring up a good point. You bring up a good point. Is like, okay,
Yeah, and so
where does peak performance come in when you have that arduous of a season?
yeah,
And
and then what I
what
was thinking was, as it goes, your first couple of years, you might be doing something, and you think that it's not a big deal. Everyone's got their own thing, and it just debilitates you. Like 12 weeks in or something, or 10 week or something that never even occurred to you. Like, oh yeah, I haven't been stretching out my Achilles or like my fingers or something crazy, and you start getting I mean, I don't know, but I just think that that's a very interesting way of kind of managing performance, because it's not necessarily the same as a lot of sports where you're trying to manage your body or volume as much, because it's so like it all has to be working at a high level. You have to maintain, improve strength and coordination, but more so than that mind body connection that always has to be operating at that
Mhm.
in those 110 degrees. Man, that's a tough sales pitch, brother.
And
Especially
it's loud,
for
man.
guys like me and Troy. That's hot, man. That's hot. We don't do well in the heat.
It's loud, and when you go to a race and you're down there in the pits, it's chaotic. Like there's fans everywhere, because it's like the one sport that people, like a pedestrian, can pay to have VIP access, and they're just standing behind you while you're about to go compete, which is an odd thing. And then on top of that, how loud it is, and you got 100,000 fans sitting in front of you, and you're like, oh. And then on top of that, okay, then there's a TV camera pointed at your face, and you're like, all right, time to go perform now. And a lot of guys, they don't really know how to handle that kind of like all the externalities. And I think that's where bobsled comes in as a good way to train that, because in bobsled, you have to be self motivated. You got to be able to handle a lot of adversity at the track, even though it's cold instead of hot. Similar style of like, oh shit, man, like our sled's not ready and we got to go in, whatever time. And then, so a good explanation, Troy, or a good example that the guy that's mentoring me right now, some of the older guys are, treat this like golf. Some days are going to be worse than others. Some days are going to be great. Come in here, manage your load, and don't blow yourself out, because we go from February, March, call it March, to November. And it's like no one's in there squatting 500, and plenty of guys can. No one's cleaning 315 at the team workouts, and plenty of can. They're doing enough to get the stimulus, make sure they're in shape, keep their numbers, keep their body strong, but their main focus is producing at the track. Track, track, track. That's all that matters, and practice.
Well, that environment is probably why they lean toward football players, because you mentioned bobsled's good training for it from a racing perspective, but also something I don't know, I'm sure you thought of it and why they have so many football guys is you're at Ole Miss, like, you're so used to performing in those stadiums where, like, you get that cheer from the either it's home or away crowd, and you just hear that ringing in your ears, that white noise, and, like, you don't think anything of it because it's time to perform, but I think that's cool. That's awesome that you also have kind of been building the skills to all kind of accumulate to this one task. I also it sounds similar. Some these things keep coming up where there's so many like commonalities even across different sports, but what you were talking about how they're trying to maintain for that peak performance reminded me of when Troy was talking about his jujitsu now because he had like a tournament circuit lineup and it was a similar thing with jujitsu. Who would have thought jujitsu and NASCAR? But it's the same kind of thing where it's maintaining strength. Correct me if I'm wrong, coach, but you can maybe draw more commonalities that you hear. But maintaining strength, but you still are kind of keeping yourself in that area where you have to perform at the highest level. I'll let you talk about it more because I don't do jujitsu.
I mean, yeah, that's really all it is. You were like, "Oh, do you wanna do that many tournaments in that short of time?" And I was like, "That's kind of how you do it." You kind of, like, go into your season, and it's like a tournament every week for, like, 4 months, and it's just like, "Alright, how do I train for this?" Well, I guess have to I'll be training, like, 7 days a week, so I have to determine what days I'm gonna go hard, what days I'm not, and manage my load like that because still have to get my lifts in, and I'll still have to go to class 4 or 5 times a week. So now if I'm lifting 3 times, that's 7 or 8 training sessions a week, and then I'm doing the tournament, so it's just trying to keep a steady state as best as you can, maintain your strength, maintain your conditioning, and just keep a steady state for 4 months. Like, there is no peak for one thing. Like, it's literally just like, "Can I maintain this state, level of conditioning and strength for the next 4 months?" I don't know, we'll see if I can. I haven't really done a circuit like this yet. This will
Is
be the
there
first time, so
Elliot, is there anything that you've noticed even just from being there for a short period of time along those lines of like kind of keeping your body? You mentioned lifting numbers are a little bit down, like they're just trying to like stay healthy. Is there anything else in terms of, let's say, lifestyle or even workload that is different than what you thought of that might be more applicable? I'm also asking because I'm curious about how that would work in with jujitsu
Do you
for
have to
Troy
run when you're
also.
tired?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dude, I think the biggest thing that, I've thought of and I haven't experienced it yet is the wear and tear of the travel, right? Like how much of that, like every weekend you're getting on a flight to fly somewhere else to perform sometimes the same day, right? In college football, we would travel a day or two before the game. And it's like, oh man, like even with bobsled, we never show up and race. We never fly to a place and then race the next day, like or that day. That doesn't ever happen. So it's like that is going to be a harder learning curve, I think, to get adjusted to. And then I was talking to our team doctor, or our team physio last week, and he was asking how much I weighed, and I was like, I'm 220, and he was going into bobsled and asking me questions about, how do I prepare, like staying leaner for bobsled's better. He said, actually, here, I want the athletes to have a little bit more fat on them because they have to go through such a long season that if they try to stay lean throughout all of it, then by the end of it, they're just going to be depleted or they're going to hurt themselves. There's one guy, I mean, tore his ACL in the middle of a pit stop, stepped on a hose wrong. One guy broke his rib cage because a car came in and hit a tire, and the tire came back and hit him while he was holding his gun and broke his rib cage. Right. Like, so it's just like, there is a physicality aspect and it's endurance, right? It's just maintaining this peak and or not peak, but trying to be your peak athletic self
I know
all
it's gonna be tough for me to maintain because after every tournament I do, I wanna take, like, 3 days off. Like, the stress of going to a place and then competing and like the anxiety and the performance anxiety and like that'll go away with the more I compete and stuff because I'm still, I guess, relatively new to the sport. But like just the stress of the travel and then competing and so forth. Like every tournament I've done, I've wanted to take like a week off after like 3+ days. And like if I go on this circuit of a tournament almost every week, I don't have that luxury. So I have to find the balance of like how do I keep my brain in a state of like calm so I don't get like too high, too low, and I'm able to just go for 3 or 4 months.
Right. 100%.
So, how many days, I guess to bring it back to like performance-based training, because I am curious about it. How many days, you kind of walked us through a week, is that change during the season? Do they manage load in terms of like lifting? And also how, to what Troy was saying, how do they, because this is something that I don't really know. I guess it was similar with rugby, is just absurd amounts of cardio to bring your base up so you can like handle it. But how do they train, I guess, low CNS stimulus kind of endurance work to be able to handle that long drawn out season, I guess? Is there anything different, or maybe it's just kind of like it's just showing up to work and your body gets acclimated? But I wondered if you see anything kind of different in terms of training, cardio, body.
Yeah.
You mentioned body comp and anything like that, because it's a very different world than what we're used to, as Troy's kind of figuring out right now. Like, it's different than what I don't know, anything that we've run into yet.
Yeah, I would say the hardest workout we did so far, it was the one that Logan was here for, and him and I were struggling through it. And it was like you did the warm up, you kind of got through these phases of the workout, but the meat of it was like you got, I think it was a minute, and you had to do a max amount of burpees for height. And then whatever that number was, you subtract 20 from, and then that number was the amount of jump pull-ups you have to do. And then after that, that number was the same amount of kcals you had to burn on the assault bike. And there
So
were
it sounds like to train for this, you should just go to CrossFit classes for a few months and you'll be good.
right. And now every program's different, right? Like the team that I signed with, they emphasize that on Thursdays. Some teams like Hendricks and Joe Gibbs Racing, I mean, all these teams have full-time strength staffs, and you know, there is still a power component and being explosive. Like you can't be sluggish and fat. And like, I think right now they're kind of going through this. There's some older guys on the team that I think they're going to start to kind of move away from a little bit, just based off of they kind of come from this old mentality of like, I just need a bench press or squat. And now they're saying like, well, now we're getting more explosive athletes in here, and we could train them. Like they'll fit the culture if they have the right mindset, but they already have such a higher baseline than dudes that have been around for years and are just kind of in this old kind of stigma. So it is a blend of bobsled and football. It's a weird, but they complement each other to the point where like you're not taking 5 minutes off in between reps or in between sets, but at the same time, like you'll do a pit stop and you might not go again for 20 minutes, right? Like a bobsled race, but you're training like football. So it's a weird dichotomy in that way.
That's really cool. We're gonna have to have you back on, because I could think of 3 more episodes we could do just shooting the shit. But I did want to touch very briefly on your time training at that new performance facility down in Charlotte, I think it is. I don't know too much about it, but I was just
Yeah.
curious about kind of that experience, as you know, Brandon, Troy, and I are
Where is this? What is it?
That's the U.S. Performance Center.
Okay, in
thing that jumps out to you. I haven't done a deep dive
Yeah,
on
and
it,
so
but
I still train there right now. My residency here ends with them in end of October. So on my off days, Monday and Friday, I still go train with them. So sprint, lift for velocity. Right now they're working into a velocity, power velocity, speed velocity block. So like on yesterday we were going through baselines of like loaded the squat bar up heavy, put that put the Tendo unit on it, or reading out like essentially build the curve, right? Like where are we gonna get to? And Quentin's my training partner when I'm there. Freak, dude. Like and and you can
mid.
see it, like you can see it in his numbers, right? Like the way
no, we got Quentin.
Big Q, you gotta get Big Q from Dartmouth on here. He can read. He's good.
Yeah, we will. He actually called me the other day, just checking in. So yeah, we'll get him on here. He's
Did you
Shout out
awesome.
say he
Quentin.
can read?
He can read.
Yeah,
He went to Ivy League. He can read. when we start going through percentages and like we're adding weight on and like we're calculating because we use Kaisers mostly for almost everything, and we'll do like blends of iron and Kaiser pressure, and so like I'll just let Quentin do all the math because he went to Dartmouth, so I'm like, hey man, you got an Ivy League education, you figure this out.
We might get a lot more Dartmouth guys. We already had Ben on here, so maybe the Dartmouth alumni GPC podcast. Maybe we'll send it to Dartmouth and see if we can get current grads on the Good Performance podcast. But
Yeah.
sorry, I interrupted you. I guess because we were talking about velocity-based training. It sounds like you guys do a lot of that. Is there any piece of equipment or kind of way that they do things there that was different than what you had kind of experienced, whether it be in the SEC or at Lake Placid, that you thought was really cool or really beneficial?
I love that when they bring you in and they get you acclimated to their system, using the Kaiser, getting used to using the air pressure and the resistance. They have every Kaiser machine that you could. They have a Kaiser. I mean, they have a Kaiser calf extension or calf raise machine. Like, yeah,
Sick.
we never use that, but some of the teams do. Like field hockey uses it for sure, and some of the rugby guys. But once you kind of get through that acclimation period, they run you through, they build a profile portfolio on you athletically, and they run you through a week of testing on the core kind of Kaiser implements. Leg press, hamstring curl, the deadlift one, the row, and then the overhead press. And they take that and they build basically your portfolio, and they find your deficiencies and then they do correctives. So for me, a big issue I just have a weak right hamstring from the hip stuff that I dealt with for a long time. And so I would have correctives at the end of every workout. That's in my program plan in my phone. Go on the Kaiser leg curl machine, put this number on, and do X amount of sets at X amount of reps with your right leg. And then slowly, a month later, when we retest, and 2 months later, you'll see that corrective start to fix itself. And for me, I was never a big data guy, right? Ole Miss, right? It's just iron, put the plates on, squat, and power clean, do the thing. Now, going into essentially a science lab and training, and then seeing, okay, where am I deficient? And then how am I building to correct the deficiency? And then seeing it actually make progress numerically, like that was pretty cool for me to experience. And what was another thing? Christian McCaffrey comes here and he does all his PT and everything here as well. So it's like, it's a little different working out in like a science lab, but it's pretty cool. And they do different things for different teams, right? Yeah, basically. Performance Center, it's a private entity. It's an official Olympic training site. All those teams, except for a couple, like the youth soccer, I'm not sure. I've never seen them before, but USA football, their flag football team, that's where they come and do all their testing. That's what they have. Yeah, it's the flag football team. So their national teams, men's and women's, they do their camps, their tryouts, their national practices here. They do their testing here. USA Judo, Taekwondo, Canoe Kayak, USA Rugby, things are based out of here. So they essentially, their version, this is their Lake Placid. So USA Bobsled, it acts as a home base for a lot of NGBs within Team USA. And like Judo and Taekwondo have a dojo here. Their coaches are here. USA Field Hockey has one of 2 in the world specially built fields for them here on campus. So they're like housed here, they live here, and we all train here. Trying to think, what was your other question? How they operated, they're privately funded, so they don't kind of fall under that same like rigmarole of USOPC and like the stuff that they do, and so they can kind of pick and choose who they want to come in. They signed 2 new NGBs recently within the past year, Modern Pentathlete, which is it's pistol shooting, ninja, swimming, and running, and there's one more.
Ninja? That's
Ninja.
awesome.
Yeah, and it's gonna be an Olympic sport. And then you have signed USA Skateboarding, so they're gonna end up building a skate park for them here. So yeah, it's just an amalgamation of teams and athletes, and it's cool because we're bobsledders, but we get to train and see, medalists in Taekwondo train, which is pretty cool, right? You kind of get that cross pollination in sports, and I think that as an athlete, I think it's important to see. Just it makes I think it makes you better. So yeah, it's been a blessing. It's cool. They have all state of the art facilities, sports med, sports psych, a nutritionist on staff who was the nutritionist at Alabama under Saban. So she's a rock star. So yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, we don't have every piece of Kaiser equipment known to man at the GPC, but maybe one day we'll get a couple.
Dude, maybe one day you'll get the Kaiser calf extension.
We get a Kaiser
Hey,
tire
man.
flip. How about
Calf
that?
extension, that's what Sue Bing was on, dude. That was the thing Huntington was obsessed with. The Kaiser calf machine, train the Soliers.
Yeah. Carson, when I was talking to Carson last time we were up at Lake Placid, he's huge on the Kaiser. I think Brandon, we were both talking to him about it, but he's big.
Dude, he's
on that
Kaiser
too,
pilled
so.
now.
Yeah, Kaiser pilled.
Well, he used to ask me about like what we would do down here in training and the Kaiser squat. The Kaiser runner is huge, especially for bobsled. And so, I think they're great. I think, this is my 2 cents. They're great implements for testing and to refine, like with a fine edge, aspects of your athletic portfolio. You still got to squat. You got to still power clean, and you still got to, you know what I mean? And so we don't do everything on the Kaiser. So the first month of every, training cycle. So this off season, we did over a month-long hypertrophy block, and it was just, it was just iron and bars, baby, and
Hell
controlled
yeah.
descents and time under tension. And so it was good.
I know. I wonder if I can find a Chinese knockoff Kaiser machine, because
I'm
we were
sure.
talking about 1080s, and we're like, oh, it's really cool piece of equipment, but I'm not gonna pay 20 grand or however much they are for one. So I found one for like a couple thousand on like Alibaba.
Yeah,
So I'll see if,
AliExpress.
yeah, AliExpress, exactly. So
Yeah.
we'll see if we can find something like that and implement that. I think we have, there's an air compress loaded device. It's kind of broken, but in the building next door that I've tried out a couple times. But I always think that stuff is cool. I think the metrics you get from it are really interesting.
Right.
And
It's
so
cool to see. It's cool to see because you're essentially quantifying effort, albeit like you're when you go and train, you're putting forth your best effort and you're giving 100%. And when you do that and you say like, I don't know if I'm getting stronger, I don't know if I'm getting faster, but when you have implements like that, you can see it's like, okay, well, let's take a step back and we'll take a macro view of your whole program for the past 4 months. You're getting stronger, you're getting more explosive. Look at the numbers. And you're like, oh, okay, well, then, something's working, whether it's your diet, your sleep, your recovery, or your training itself.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up because we have technical difficulties with Coach Troy. That was an hour and a half. Elliot, we're going to have you back on because I feel like we just, Brandon, Troy, and I say, oh, we could make a bunch of podcasts about the stuff we talk about. I feel like we could have you on a few times and still not fill in. But that was extremely helpful.
We need to talk about ball, man. We need to talk about ball.
More football. Maybe we'll get I think that would be a cool thing to try out, is have a little seminar and just talk about football concepts. I think that our guys would definitely benefit from it. And we can send some feelers out and see who would be interested. Thanks for coming on. Ole Miss to bobsled to NASCAR. I mean, doesn't
To
get
U.S.
more rugged.
Senate, right? And that's next.
To U.S.
Yeah, I'm
You're running against Paul Feinbaum, dude. He's gonna
That's
run.
it.
You see that?
Yeah, dude, he's making a run in
I
Alabama.
know.
That's crazy.
That
That's
doesn't get
crazy.
much more, that career doesn't get much good. All right. So, okay. It's going to be funny because there's going to be pauses when you talk, but it's not recorded. You ready?
It's added to the workload.
Yeah, we'll edit this. And we're back with the Good Performance Podcast. We experienced some brief technical difficulties. This is where we're at. Brandon, you can put that in. I think that's going to be really helpful. You could just move that. Yeah, but thanks for coming. That's one hell of a story. I think you got a lot more for us. Really cool. We didn't even talk about all your exciting travels. Briefly China, but
we got another
There's a
We
lot.
China
didn't talk
trip
about
planned.
2013 Ole Miss, bro. You came in like the prime time, bro. I remember being in high school. I was like a freshman.
we got
or
to stop. We got to
sophomore.
stop. We got to stop. We got to
I
have
know,
him
I
back
know.
on.
Just
It's an
next
hour
time,
30.
dude. Like, damn.
All right. I'm going to just stop the recording. We can stay on the call and just shoot the shit for a little, though. All right. Thanks for joining in. Dream big, work hard, get good. Yeah. Lift and sleep, I guess. Jeez.